Welcome to the Insolvency and Law podcast, providing specialist insolvency and debt-related advice for business owners and individuals. For more information on debt recovery, business restructuring, and personal and corporate insolvency, visit our website www.insolvencyandlaw.co.uk or call us now on 020 7504 1300.
Hello and welcome to the Insolvency and Law podcast. Insolvency and Law is an award-winning consultancy firm specialising in insolvency, debt purchasing and business rescue. Welcome to our latest episode, Unraveling DeTrafford, Understanding the Financial Downfall. In today's episode, our investigative analyst Gill Clow and director and insolvency and debt recovery expert Peter Murray will be taking you through the challenges recently faced by DeTrafford and its impact on investors. They will also be shedding light on the strategies and options available to those affected. So if you're an investor seeking a deeper understanding of the situation, wanting to recover your funds, or simply a professional involved in insolvency and law, this episode will provide you with valuable information and perspectives. So, Gill and Peter, welcome to the podcast. I hand over to you.
Sarah, thank you. Hi, Gill. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Peter?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Gill, right, why don't we just get straight into it? Gill, take your time, though. Tell us all about, or what you can, we'll start off with a brief, shall we, about DeTrafford. What do you know about DeTrafford? Who is DeTrafford?
So DeTrafford are a group of property development companies in Manchester. There's
Right.
several development companies across different development sites. And recently, they've all started collapsing into administration as of last year. There's just one trading company left now, Victoria Garden.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
How many DeTrafford companies were there, or are there in total, that we know about anyway?
Well, the main ones we're focusing on are, there's 5 of them, 5 that have gone into administration that are directly related to development companies, but there are others going into administration as well.
Okay, before we look at the actual companies, let's look at individuals behind the companies. So who are the current directors or director of the DeTrafford companies?
Well, the key players everyone talks about, Gary Jackson and Kane Jackson, with Gary Jackson being the shareholder. Kane apparently was involved with sales. Gary seems to be the main spokesperson.
Okay, so we've got Gary Jackson and Kane Jackson. Is this father and son, or is this brother and brother? Are they related in any way?
Well, they're definitely related. Due to the age difference, they could be father and son. But we've had differing stories on that, and I haven't had time. There's been so much to do with the various companies. I haven't actually had time to work out the relationship, so to speak.
We've got a Gary Senior then and a Kane Junior, is it?
Yes.
Right. So Gary could be the uncle, or he could be the father, and Kane could be the son or the nephew.
Yes.
We suspect there's sons. Okay, fine. And all the shares are held by Gary Jackson, is it?
Yes. I mean, all the companies are set up as individual companies. There's no sort of group structure. But Gary is the shareholder of each company.
In all the companies. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we know then that most of the DeTrafford companies have fallen into administration in the last 12 months or so.
Yes.
And we know that one of the companies was subject to a winding up petition only recently, but that company has since fallen into administration.
Correct.
And so there's only one DeTrafford company that is currently trading. Is that correct, Gill?
Yep. So that company is DeTrafford Victoria Gardens Limited. So that's not without problem, though. The DeTrafford are in breach of contract for long stop dates with investors for this development. They've also been trying to force investors into signing extended long stop dates to keep their contracts live. And the development is not yet complete. It's a long way off completion.
Do we know when the original long stop date was and what's it been extended to?
It varies for individuals.
Oh yes, that's
but
right.
they have tried to extend it to 2026 for some people.
Right. And I take it there is a significant pushback by purchasers not wanting to agree the extended long stop date.
Yes and no. Some investors think that by signing it, they're safeguarding their investment, so they have signed it. Others have pushback. Others are querying it with their conveyancing solicitors and not getting much joy.
Wow. And is this the case with the current DeTrafford company that's trading? And was this the case with the other DeTrafford companies that have since fallen into administration with regards to long stop dates?
That is certainly the case for Victoria Gardens. So for number 1 Castlefield, which recently fell into administration, yes, again, there they were trying to get them to extend their long stop date.
And we understand that when developers want to extend the long stop date, it's because they're so far off completion. They need more time to complete.
They don't want investors to pull out of the investment, basically. They don't want to be in breach on their side, so they therefore extend the contract using a clause, sometimes force majeure, and that keeps the contract live.
And we understand in these instances, with regards to the DeTrafford companies, the force majeure provision in investors' contracts with the DeTrafford companies, and they actually triggered that force majeure provision due to the COVID pandemic. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, that's what they seem to be relying on.
Yeah, but we know the pandemic has come and gone.
And also, they only employed the force majeure in some cases last September, a day before the contracts expired. So investors were getting letters the day before the contracts expired saying they were employing force majeure in 2022 and extending contracts another couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it seems to me that the DeTrafford companies just simply ran out of funds. Investors' funds were not sufficient to complete these projects. They ran out of funds. They need more investors to pile in with their cash so that these projects can be completed. The new investors weren't coming. And so these companies, one by one, fell into insolvent administration. And no doubt, I believe this company that's currently trading at some point in time, I think sooner rather than later, unfortunately, will also fall into insolvent administration.
I agree. There's a lot of upset amongst investors across the different developments. Some, for example, DeTrafford Wavelength Limited. There's reports that planning permission wasn't granted at the time that investors' deposits were taken. Some investors have had their deposits in for 4 or 5 years and ground hasn't even been broken on the development. Meanwhile, other developments have been started later and finished, albeit with errors in design and construction. But it all just seems to be.
We've also heard the stories of purchasers having their deposits transferred from one development to the other.
Yeah, some of them have had their deposits. Well, they were in agreement to transfer their deposits, but then the company they transfer their deposits to then went into administration.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there's a lot of unhappy investors out there, and I don't blame them.
So, what we do know is these investors. Tell us about the conveyancing solicitors then, Gill. These conveyancing solicitors, were they sourced independently by purchasers, or were purchasers given a panel of conveyancing solicitors to use, and that panel put forward by the DeTrafford companies or the DeTrafford group?
Yeah, that's correct. So DeTrafford put forward their own panel of conveyancing solicitors for investors to choose from.
Right. So we know there's probably about a handful of solicitors on the DeTrafford panel.
Correct.
And then the DeTrafford purchasers will just go to the panel. Right, there's 5 or 6 solicitors. we'll use this one. And
Yes.
so, yeah, 4 or 5, maybe 6 solicitors did all the conveyancing for all the units sold by DeTrafford.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Yes,
That's a huge red flag. We see that. It's a huge red flag.
we do.
Yeah, if you're going to buy a property, you're not going to buy you're not going to use a solicitor put forward by the vendor, by the seller. I mean, that's just absolute. When you think about it, you think about you're going to buy a property, and the estate agent selling you the property say, by the way, the seller of the property has put forward a few solicitors who you may want to use or you should use. And so the seller gives you an option to use, one of 3 or 4 solicitor firms.
Yeah.
And you, the buyer, say, thank you, seller, I will use this solicitor firm. Thank you for recommending this solicitor firm. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, that's what's happened, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
In the cold light of day, Gill, that's what's happened. And that's a huge red flag. Huge red flag.
Yeah. And that's actually where we've been focusing our efforts on our investigations.
Yeah. And again, we see, Gill, where the deposits paid by these purchasers, I mean, usually when you buy a property, usually you exchange with a 10% deposit. If you're cheeky, you can probably get away with exchange with a deposit of 5%. But, the norm is 10%.
Yes.
But we know that these purchasers, these investors, they were asked to exchange with a whopping 20% deposit. So 20% of the purchase price, be that the deposit to exchange with. Well, that has to be another red flag, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a red flag in our book. A lot of them exchanged with 20% deposit.
Right. And also, when we look at these solicitors, do we believe they've done a good job? More to the point, because we've seen the reports on title, i.e. when you buy a property, your conveyancing solicitor does a report on the title, does a report on the transaction. Your conveyancing solicitor carries out a certain amount of due diligence. They check with the local authorities to make sure that that there are no railroads going up or this, that, and the other. But they carry out a certain amount of basic checks as part of their due diligence process, and to safeguard so that the buyer is aware, before they exchange contracts. Because once contracts is exchanged, the buyer is committed to complete. And so the conveyancing solicitor has to ensure that the buyer has sufficient information, credible information, before them, that will assist them in making a decision to deciding to obviously exchange contracts and then complete later down the road. We've seen the reports on title. We've referred the reports on title to some expert lawyers in this area of law. And their view is the same as ours. And their view is those solicitors have got a lot to answer for. And the upshot is those solicitors have been negligent. Let's call it out and say it for what it is. Those solicitors have been negligent in their conveyancing
advice.
Gill, we have to call it out for what it is. Those solicitors have been negligent. And we have a handful of solicitors. The evidence is clear. The evidence is shocking. It's actually compelling that those solicitors have absolutely been negligent. And we want to make contact with those purchasers, investors who bought any DeTrafford property, whether the DeTrafford company is in administration or if it's the loan company that's still trading. There is much hope for you, and you should get in contact with us because we can certainly help you.
Yeah, this is great news for investors because if you don't know administration or the company process, investors might be thinking that all is lost now the company's gone into administration. But this is a separate route where we've got a strong case for professional negligence, where investors don't have to rely solely on the administration process to get a recovery and get their investment back.
Yeah, and it's fair to say, Gill, that we have recovered funds in full plus cost for several DeTrafford investors. So there is the opportunity to recover your funds that way in full, but investors would need to move extremely quickly if they want to recover funds from the DeTrafford company that is still currently trading.
Yes.
The other DeTrafford companies that have fallen into administration, it is possible that those investors will recover nothing at all from the administration. It's possible that investors may recover something from the administration. Were they to be successful and recover something, it won't be anytime soon. They're looking at least 3, 4, possibly 5 years down the road. And, it may be a fraction, the recovery percentage may be a fraction of the funds they use to exchange contracts with. It could be as little as 10% or less than 10%. However, we say investors, should still be encouraged, because we have identified that they can bring an action against the conveyancing solicitor. We've got the evidence. All that investor needs to do, purchaser, is come forward to Insolvency and Law, share your contact details. We will make contact with you. We will explain to you the evidence we've got and what you need to do if you want to come on board and retain our service to take action against your conveyancing solicitor to recover your funds on your behalf. Is that right, Gill?
That's absolutely correct, yes. And it costs nothing for us to review investors' situations.
Oh, that's right, because the investors, when they make contact with us, obviously the investors have got to share the documents that they've received from their conveyancing solicitor. They share those documents with us. We have a very detailed checklist. So we check those documents, against our very detailed checklist. And, if it comes up trumps, as we know it will be, because they are all coming up that way, then of course we will make contact with the investor. We will absolutely, make contact with you and confidently say that you have a claim and your claim is compelling and we'd like to take that claim on board. You give us that claim, we then take that claim on board, and we will then, on your behalf, take actions against the offending solicitor firm who has committed professional negligence, who's committed basically, a breach that will give you rise to bring an action where you can recover your funds. Have I said enough, Gill, or is there more to say?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Just don't delay getting in contact. Time is of the essence.
Right. So here's the appeal. If you have invested, if you've purchased a property, a unit from any of the DeTrafford companies, by all means, do get in contact with us. It will cost you nothing at all other than the time it takes you to make contact with us. Our contact details will follow, but do make contact, do get in contact with us. All we'll ask you to do is submit some contractual documentation to us. We will review it at no cost to yourself. We will review it and we will return to you. If we can help you, and I'm 99.9% sure we can, if we can help you, we will tell you we can help you, and we will get together with you, explain our processes. And if you're happy with that and you want to proceed, then of course we will provide you with the documentation to allow us to proceed on your behalf. Let me say this. We are experts in this area of recovery, and we have successfully in the past sued, litigated against 3 separate law firms who have done the exact same thing, and we litigated against them successfully on behalf of investors just like you. So, and let me tell you, the highest claim was for £13 million, and the lowest claim was like £6.5 million, where we have litigated successfully against law firms and succeeded. So we do know what we are doing. We also litigate against auditors and all sorts of different professionals who we consider to have let investors down very badly, and who we say, are the cause for investors' losses. So you're in the right place. You're listening to the right podcast. You're going to take the right action, which is make contact with us. We're going to contact you. You're going to share information with us. We're going to come back to you and say, yes, we can do this on your behalf. And you're going to say to us, go ahead. And that's exactly what we're going to do to recover your funds back to you. So get in contact.
Thank you, Gill and Peter. We hope you found this episode insightful and encouraging. And if you have any further questions regarding DeTrafford, please do get in touch on 0207 504 1300. That's 0207 504 1300. Or please do email the investigations team at investigations@insolvencyandlaw.co.uk. Thank you once again for listening, and take care of yourselves.
Thank you for listening to the Insolvency and Law podcast. If you require additional guidance on any of the topics we covered today, visit the Resource Centre at our website, www.insolvencyandlaw.co.uk, or call us now on 020 7504 1300.